Welcome to Monopoly.
It's probably safe to assume that everyone's played Monopoly before, at least one of the versions, since there seems to be thousands of offshoots of the original game. But if for some reason you've never played Monopoly before, the game involves you traveling around a board, landing on properties, and trying to control the colored space neighborhoods, and try to get a monopoly in the area, while at the same time trying to bankrupt the other characters. I'm sure everyone has their own way of playing Monopoly. It's truly one of those games where the rules can be tweaked around a lot, and still keep the spirit of the game alive. For example, when we play Monopoly in our family, we allow you to put up houses and hotels without a monopoly. It only makes sense. Why do you need to buy up all the properties in the area just to build on it? What kind of insane logic is that? And luckily they allow you to tweak with the rules a lot in this game. They have many options to change the game in your preferred way, so you can make it look and feel like your family's game. There are quite a few boards that you can unlock to play, to change up the action a little, but in the end they're just window dressing since the basic game doesn't change one bit. You unlock them by buying properties in the game you play. For each one you buy or acquire, it earns you a stamp in your passport. And when you get a certain number of stamps, you can unlock a different board. Each board has their own variations on the classic pieces as well, so I thought that was a cool addition. But I have to be honest though, the game is extremely boring to play alone. It's not very fun to play against the computer since they force you to play with 4 players, and the time between turns feels like it takes too long. I wish you had the option to fast forward the computer's turn. The game itself was well done, and if I had to complain about anything, the loading times on some of the areas were a bit annoying. And also when you're trading, it was kind of hard to see which properties you were trying to trade. They only gave you a little tiny icon of what they wanted you to trade, and the dice rolls didn't seem realistic at all. But it still is the best video game version of Monopoly I've ever played. But instead of focusing in on talking about a game that everyone knows already how to play, I'm going to get into a completely different version of Monopoly that's also available to play in this game. Riches Mode. It uses the same board, but it's played in a completely different way. The game's a little bit confusing to understand how to play. It took me quite a few turns to understand what was going on, so I'm going to try and explain this the best I can. The game is set up for so many turns. I played the beginner's mode, which is 6 turns, but you can go up to 12. The advantage of playing with more turns is that you get to play with more of the board spaces. They roll 4 dice and then a minigame happens, and this pattern is repeated with each round. The orders of the winner of that minigame decides which dice they want to play with. In the very first round, you'll want the higher number, since you'll get the most cards. But after the first or maybe the second round, you'll want to pick the lowest number, since at that point most of the properties will be taken and you'll have to end up paying rent. After you choose what number you want, the computer will randomly give you property cards that you'll use like cash. So if somebody in the future gets the same card, they'll have to pay you 1 property in rent money. Confused yet? It gets even more confusing. When you're dealt the community chest card, it lets the poorest player take 3 properties from one of the players. And chance cards give you the ability to put houses on your properties. For every Monopoly house or hotel you get, the number of properties you can take from the other players increases. Monopolies will come and go a lot through this game, and the goal is to earn the most money in the game by the final round. There are a couple problems with the game though. First, the minigames were dumb. They usually involve you putting something in somewhere, or racing something. They used the motion controls for everything, and it mostly worked, but I had some issues with it reading my actions in some of the minigames. But with a little finesse, I worked around it. And second, there's just too much luck involved with this game to make it enjoyable for me. The game itself would have been greatly improved with a little online play for either version of the game. Unfortunately, there isn't even a hint of online multiplayer options, which is unexcusable for this type of game in this day and age. The game is currently $40, and while the game looks nice, I don't think it's worth it. Maybe if the game was $20, it might be worth a buy. But with that said, this is a solid and true version of the game of Monopoly, and I do think the game is worth a rent.